Welcome to a special edition of the Cinemassacre podcast. We have some interesting things to talk about today, mainly the Halloween series and Metallica. But we're going to get into, some cool stuff about that.
It's time for the Cinemassacre podcast.
But first, a message from today's sponsor.
Hey everyone out there in TV land, it's Kieran from the Cinemassacre podcast, and today I'm here to talk to you about Ridge Wallets. Ridge Wallets. Ridge Wallets. Oh yeah. Ridge Wallets. Ridge Wallets. Oh yeah. Ditch that old bulky wallet and pack up to 12 cards in a variety of 30 different styles and colors. Like the tropical aluminum wallet. It's like a debit card sandwich capped off between two slices of high-tech metals and synthetic fibers. And let me tell ya, I love this wallet, but apparently so do 40,000 others. It even has a lifetime warranty and a 45-day test drive. And don't forget, Ridge does more than just wallets. Check out their many other products, such as the commuter backpack that's pretty much rip-proof. You can't rip it! So head on over to ridge.com/Cinemassacre and use our code Cinemassacre for 10% off your order.
So I'm here with Mark Miller, and we've talked about you before on some previous podcasts. You have a band called Corruptor, or an instrumental metal project.
Yeah, so Corruptor, it's spelled Corrupt-R. I had to get a little weird with it because there's already a band called Corruptor. But yeah, just think of I really love video game music, and I really love sci-fi fantasy sounds. So if you think Mass Effect, it's kind of like this 80s sci-fi throwback synth stuff. And also Blade Runner and all that. So just think of that mixed with modern progressive metal, maybe Periphery, Meshuggah, that kind of stuff. And so if you like that stuff, a mix of that sounds interesting to you, then yeah, check it out. You might like it.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like music that would be in Doom. The first band that came to my mind when I heard it was Fear Factory. I really love Fear Factory, the sci-fi and low tuning, really heavy sound. So it's basically like if you took Fear Factory but took the vocals out. It's an instrumental thing. So if you don't like the harsh vocals and stuff, this is the band for you. And I'm not just saying that to plug it. I'm saying it because it really does sound awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. But the reason we met was because I played guitar for about 20 years or so, but I wouldn't really count that because I've only been playing seriously for a few years. It was always a side hobby, just something I would do every once in a while in the background. And I never publicized it. I always kept it a secret that I play guitar. I don't know, just never really felt like there's so many great guitar players out there. What do I have to add? I mean, I'm very novice. So one day I just decided, hey, we were in the middle of COVID. It was in the middle of 2020 and really bummed out and everything. And we started this quarantine band, Rex Viper, of course. And it just made me feel so good. And I posted it. And then after, we got a really positive response. So then I posted a video of me playing some Black Sabbath riffs, and you responded after that. And
yeah,
it's funny because it's the first time I ever got constructive criticism that said you need to use your pinky more.
Yeah, I was watching you play Crazy Train, and it was actually really impressive. You were playing that without your pinky. I mean, you were doing some serious stretches, but I was like, man, get that pinky in there, dude. So yeah, I just emailed you just on a whim. I didn't really expect you to respond, but it was hey, you want some guitar lessons and work on that pinky, man. And yeah, you wrote back. It was cool.
Yeah, and I actually can play it with my pinky now.
Yeah, you've done really good with that. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah. So you would start giving me lessons and stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm sure I'll accept the lessons. And I was always kind of just discouraged with playing guitar because I was just it's too hard for me. I'm never gonna get that good. But you were really encouraging, and you've been teaching me lots of cool stuff. And we're gonna do some more too. So
yeah, no, I mean you've been so excited. I mean, it's just cool to see how happy it makes you, man. Especially the Rex Viper show. I mean, you're just all smiles the whole time. So I mean, obviously as a guitar teacher, that makes me happy. Obviously, just to see someone playing guitar and just being this is so awesome. But yeah, you've been doing great in your lessons, and we've already learned a lot, I think. Yeah, you've done really good, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and also a little story we should add, because one of my guitars was yours, the 8-string.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was really interested in the low tuning. I mean, that's not what I usually do, but I mean, I used it on one song we did, but I was just really interested in like how that works. And you were telling me about it, and you're like, well, you know, I have this guitar, and it's the one you recorded the first Corruptor album with.
Right.
You just like offered it to me, and I'm like,
yeah.
I pretty much sent you the whole AVGN like Blu-ray collection and everything. I'm like, I hope this makes up for this guitar that.
Oh yeah, no, this totally unnecessary, but like super nice of you. You know, I just remember we were talking about like the really, really low tune stuff, like 8-string stuff, and you were just so excited about it. Like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, what bands use that? Like, I could tell you were just really excited. And I was going to sell that guitar on Reverb, but any musician on here listening knows that selling something on Reverb can be kind of a pain in the ass. And I was like, you know what, dude, why don't you just take it? Like, I know you're going to enjoy it. And plus, it's kind of selfish because it means I get to see it again. Because I do love that guitar, right? And if I sell it to a stranger on Reverb, I'm never going to see it again. But if I give it to you, it's like, okay, I get to... And I got to play it at Too Many Games again for the sound check. And I was like, cool, it was nice to play it again. But I upgraded it for a Strandberg 8-string, which is the reason I got rid of it in the first place. So anyway, that's that story. So.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And that brings us, you know, to the month of October. We played the Rex Viper show, and you know, voluntarily flew out to that show.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, to hang out, but also you helped us like select our gear and our amps and stuff. And you helped set up my pedals and things like that. And you were there to change a string if a string broke or anything like that.
Yeah. Fortunately, everything went fine. So
yeah.
Other than Adam's bass, the volume knob fell off the night before, remember? So I had to like fix that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Like 2 hours before the show or something. I was like, oh man, we're like trying to find Allen wrenches to fix this bass. But everything went smooth after that. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, minor fuck ups, but nothing bad, like nothing that derailed the song. Because I was worried, oh fuck, what if I forget like a whole part or something?
No, your first show's stressful, man. The first show is so stressful. Like, you swear you're just gonna like fall over and take out the drum set and it's gonna be a disaster.
Oh,
and, like, yeah, dude, it's. I remember my first show was so stressful. But I mean, you know, yeah, a few fuck ups, but whatever. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's your first show. You guys did great.
Yeah, there's a couple of parts where like I would miss a note, but then I'd come back in.
Yeah.
So it was a very quick recovery. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I listened back to the whole thing and I thought the first 3 songs I was kind of warming up a bit, and the last 3 were really good. Like the last 3 sound pretty solid to me. Mm. But yeah, I mean, but it wasn't even like about that. It was just about the room and about just everybody was happy to be out again and to see people and to see like people happy. It was a big party.
It was much needed after the pandemic, right? Like, I mean, I really haven't gone out and done anything like that in a year and a half because of COVID. So just going to that was just to see a bunch of people again and everyone smiling and having fun. Like, it was cool. It just felt good.
Yeah, and like it was one of the most fun things I ever did in my life with creative projects. You know, it was such a blast.
I'll never forget my first show, dude. Like, it probably sucked. I doubt we were any good, but like, I'll never forget it. It was so fun.
Yeah, the whole night, like when we went to the bar afterwards and everybody was just like, yo, that was so awesome. It was like, I know, right? Like, it was just the energy and the happiness was so good. But this brings us to our topic. So Halloween Kills, because we were in the month of October, and while we were hanging out,
yeah,
I realized what a big Halloween fan you were.
Yeah.
Of the Halloween series. And we were just talking about it a lot. And you're like, are you going to see Halloween Kills? I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
And we should talk about that after it comes out. Now, here we are. I don't know when this is coming out, but we're in the month of November now. We've both seen Halloween Kills, but haven't really had the chance to discuss it much. Mm. We're going to talk about some minor spoilers. We're not going to say who lives or dies. We're not going to say anything about the ending. But we'll talk about some plot points that happen along the way, and basically just to get to what we liked, what we didn't like, and then also our thoughts and ideas for the overall Halloween series.
Of which we have many.
Yeah, we do. That's where this is going to get good. Wait. All right, so first let's start with what did you like about it? I guess I'll go first. I think we agree with the 1978 scenes were really cool. I really liked the lighting. The neighborhood at night, and that it took place on the same night as the first one, just like Halloween 2 did. And it kind of made me wonder why they didn't do that with Halloween 2018. Halloween 2018 was sort of like a weird sort of tribute to the sequels, because it would just take all these scenes from all the crappy sequels and sort of celebrate them. Like it was almost trying to be its own crappy sequel. But I feel like if they would have sort of just made the whole movie 1978, like a remake of Halloween 2, that would have been a more interesting way to go. I'm not sure.
Well, I will say right away that I totally agree with you about the flashback scenes. That was incredible, the way they filmed that. Like, I don't know much about filmmaking, you know way more than I do, but man, they made it look exactly the same. Like, just the lighting, the feel of it. Like, I remember when I watched it, I was just thinking, like, am I seeing, are they using old footage? And it's like, for a second, that's what I thought. And then I realized, like, no, that they actually like recreated this whole like neighborhood and the whole feel of it. I mean, that was impressive. And minor spoiler, but we got to see Dr. Loomis again in those flashbacks, which was pretty cool. And I thought that was a deep fake.
Yeah, I thought it was a deep fake too, and then I heard it was like prosthetics.
Yeah, it's like some crew member with prosthetics, yeah.
Yeah, it made me wonder, is that the right time to use them? Like, they could have maybe saved him for something more interesting, like had him do like a monologue. I'm not really sure why we needed to see that. Like, it was cool to see him, but I don't really know if it was the right thing to do.
It almost seemed like a tip of the hat to the fans, like, oh, hey, look, it's Loomis. It's almost like what they did in Star Wars, the new trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're just going to like throw the fans a bone here and there with like, oh, look, it's this person, and oh, look, it's that. But it doesn't really affect the story at all.
I was disappointed that Jamie Lee Curtis was in the hospital bed like the whole movie. She had a really good role in Halloween 2018, even though it's basically the same thing as H2O. It's like the whole concept. She fights back. Yeah. But they sort of did that in H2O, and I don't really know what... it just seems like they're rehashing the same thing all the time, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this one at least felt fresher. It felt a little more like they were trying to do something different with it. Mm-hmm. They have some ideas that were kind of good, but they didn't really work. Like, all the people are like becoming this angry mob, and they're going after this guy at this asylum who is clearly not Michael Myers. He's another person. And it sort of brings up the idea like that Michael Myers was this anonymous killer, and they're mistaking him for this other guy. But he was never anonymous. Everybody knows he's Michael Myers, and he was maskless in a, asylum for all these years, and it just didn't make any sense whatsoever.
I don't know if you noticed, but there's even a scene toward the beginning of the movie when they're all sitting in a bar, and like you remember the guy's doing kind of like a stand-up microphone act or whatever. But you see on the TV that there's been two like convicts escaped, or two people escaped from the mental hospital. And it shows them, it says Michael Myers, and it shows his face. And they kind of blur out the TV so you can't see his face. But all the characters are looking at this TV. And then they show the other guy, and he escaped too. It's like, they know exactly what Michael looks like. So it was weird to me that they mixed the two up, especially since the other guy doesn't look anything like him, like way shorter and this long, scraggly hair. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was a little strange.
Yeah. There's also a strange thing about how, like, there's a cop that's given a backstory where he had the chance to shoot Michael at point blank, but I guess it wasn't like, I guess at that point they didn't know he was immortal.
Right.
But it was like, I just was like, it wouldn't have killed him anyway. And also in the same, just earlier, he did try to shoot Michael, but he shot his officer friend, and I don't even know how he did that, because he's like just standing right there across the room, and he's such a bad shot. But I don't know. There was a lot of things that bothered me. The idea of bringing back every minor character from all the movies was kind of interesting, but it made me think, like, why was that necessary? And how many characters are even left now?
Yeah, no, it was a little weird. I mean, some of these people were just like kids in the first one, and some of them I was like, who was that? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it was the nurse that went with Loomis to pick up Michael, who's in the movie for about 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
You remember? It's like she's in it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. That was just an interesting idea that they brought back all those characters, but it is a little bit awkward. It's like, I don't know. I can't explain why it's awkward. It just kind of is.
Well, I mean, there's some obvious reasons, right? Like, these people wouldn't move. Like, they all just stayed there. Like, this horrible thing happened, and it's like the entire town stayed. Like, no one went to college. No one, like, went off to a different city to get a job. It's like, no, we're all going to stay in Haddonfield, where this horrible thing happened, and just drink at this bar and, like, talk about the old memories of it. It's kind of funny. But, you know, you can excuse it. I mean, it's it's kind of a goofy horror movie. At least it was entertaining.
It was, yeah. I definitely enjoyed it overall.
Right, like, you agree it was entertaining, right? Yeah. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the other things I did like was, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy who plays Michael in the two newest movies is good. I mean,
yeah.
And I know Michael doesn't have to do much but walk around and stab people, but I mean, there is a certain way he moves, like Nick Castle in the original one. Like, there is a certain way he moves that just, I don't think would be very easy to do, and a lot of the people who've played Michael really didn't pull it off very well. But this new guy, I think, nails it. Just like the head movements, the way he walks around so casually, like it just looks so much like the original movie. So he did a great job.
Yeah, definitely. They made the mask look right.
Yeah, so they made the mask look right. Yeah, which is like, you wouldn't think that'd be so hard.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, God, there's so many sequels where the mask looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it looks like what a mask would look like 40 years later. Like, I still have some Halloween masks from as a kid, and they're like, they're all beat up. And that anything that's made of latex too, like, it starts to like stick to itself, and like just it'll rip in parts, and that just
kind of deteriorate over time.
Yeah, I just feel like they definitely got the mask right, the body type, the actor was right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that I kind of don't like about the new Halloween movies or any of the sequels, and it kind of like takes us into just the Halloween series as a whole, is I feel like there's two things that make Michael Myers scary. One is he has no motive, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like so important. And number two is that he is technically a mortal man that can be killed. So he could be anyone. So there's like this scene I want to talk to you about, because I feel like no one ever talks about this scene. Mm-hmm. And it's in the original movie. They go to a graveyard, and it's Dr. Loomis and like the graveyard caretaker, right? And they're like walking, trying to find Judith Myers' headstone. And the caretaker says, "Oh, I remember Michael and his sister, and that was such a horrible night. And what a young boy. It was so sad." And then he says, "This happens in every town. There's like the next town over. There was this guy who had a family, and he's at dinner table with his wife and kids. And then for no reason, he excuses himself very politely from the table, goes, gets a hacksaw from the garage, comes back, and he gets cut off right there. But you know what happened? He kills his whole family, right?" And I always thought like that scene is really important. Like that tells you everything about the original Halloween. That's the point of the movie. Like every town has a story like this of someone who's snapped and killed. And in Haddonfield, it's Michael Myers. And the next town over, it's this father who kills his family. And the next town over had someone else.
And the next town over, it's Jason Voorhees.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this happens like in every town, right? And it could be...
I mean, they're both supposed to be in New Jersey, aren't they? Like Haddonfield, New Jersey. Well, no, it's Haddonfield.
Well, Haddonfield's Illinois, right? But
they based it on Haddonfield, New Jersey, but it takes place in the fictional Haddonfield, Illinois, yet it's shot in Pasadena, California. So...
And Friday the 13th is New Jersey also?
I don't know if they say it in the movie, but the first one was New Jersey, yeah.
Wow, don't live in New Jersey, man. Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, that line, like, I mean, because I didn't think about that part in a long time, but since you brought it up, like, that gives me the chills. Because, he does, like Loomis, he cuts him off, so you never get to hear the rest of it. So you have to fill in.
Well, that was masterfully done. Like, don't you think that was like really masterfully done by like Deborah Hill and John Carpenter? Like, anytime something terrible happens, like there's a murder or a terrorist attack or anything like that, that's like kind of evil and people die, what does everyone want to know, right? Why? Why did they do it? And you always hear the story of like, after everything's said and done, they go to the killer's like apartment and they're like going through the laptop trying to figure out what the motive could have possibly, like that's what everyone wants to know is why did they do this? And so they very masterfully wrote this movie where it's like they knew that's human nature, that you want to know why this kid would kill his sister. And we're not going to tell you. There is no reason why. He just did it, and he just snapped.
It gives me chills.
Yeah, no, it's very cool, right? And And what makes me upset about every sequel is, and he's a mortal man, so it could be anyone. It could be your neighbor could be the next Michael Myers. Your son could be the next Michael Myers, right? And it's like, man, every sequel either gives him a motive or they make him this immortal tank. It's like, man, you're destroying these two concepts that made him so scary in every sequel. So personally, that's something I've never liked about any of the sequels, even though I can still enjoy them.
I mean, the ending of the first one, I mean, it's just such a great ending, but it does...
Oh, man, yeah.
It implies that he's not mortal at the end of that movie. Like, but it doesn't answer.
Yeah, they kind of hinted, but they leave you not knowing, right? Like, for all you know, he was able to get up because he's just so psychopathic and doesn't even feel pain. Mm-hmm. But for all we know, he like walked 20 yards and just dropped dead. Or maybe he's still out there, right? Like, that's what makes it so scary at the end. Like, you don't know how someone could walk away from that. And did he die? Did he not?
Wow.
But yeah, in the sequels, it's like, no, he's just a tank. Now he's just Jason Voorhees in the sequels, right? You can shoot him, you can blow him up, it doesn't matter. He'll live.
That's a good idea for... Okay, here's what I would do now. I mean, no, I have too many ideas, but this now, you just gave me a new one. So, okay, Halloween 2. It's whatever you call it. You know, this is the next one that...
So is this your idea for a sequel?
This is the next one that ignores all the sequels except the first one.
Okay.
It starts off, yeah. So it starts off right after the first movie ends, right? And Loomis is running out to go find him, much like he does in the original Halloween 2. And then they find him, and he's laying there dead. Like he does exactly what you said. He went 20 yards and then just dropped dead. Mm-hmm. Then they take him to like the morgue or whatever, and then the detectives all come in, and everybody's kind of trying to figure out like why he did what he did. And the rest of the movie is just this big investigation as to like why did he do it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And maybe he's not dead. Maybe instead he's not at the morgue. He's in like a hospital, and he's in critical condition, but he's not dead. And you have him there the whole time. And maybe by the end of the movie, he recovers and gets up again.
Oh, okay.
So there's still ways to like keep it open and mysterious, but it could just be a much better movie that way. Like, because it's interesting, it's fresh, it's not just the same slasher recipe.
You had another idea for like a sequel / prequel.
So okay, so the 1978 scenes. Once I saw that you could bring back Loomis, like, okay, if Loomis could be in these again, well, then why don't we just have a whole movie about Loomis? It would just be called Loomis. It would be a prequel, or more like a midquel, because it would take place after the incident where he murdered his sister, but before he escapes. And which they actually shot some of those scenes in the we were talking about this, the TV edit of Halloween, where Loomis is in the asylum talking to Michael as a kid. He's like, "You fooled them, Michael,
but you didn't fool me.
But you didn't fool me." So yeah, a Loomis prequel could be an interesting idea. But it goes further, because so there's this fan theory that the character Sam Loomis in Psycho is the same Sam Loomis in Halloween. And the theory goes, like, after his experience with Norman Bates, he devoted his life to understanding criminal psychology, and that's when he would have had to go to the UK or something to develop a British accent, because the guy
studied at Oxford. Yeah.
Yeah. There's obviously problems with this theory, but it's great. Like it's just, you want to make it work, and it could be, you could alter, details just to make this work if you want to do. So basically what I'm proposing is a universe where Norman Bates and Michael Myers coexist.
Yeah.
Because everybody's, it's always about like Michael versus Jason or all these hypothetical matchups, but nobody ever brings the original slasher, Norman Bates, into it.
And I love that it's all based around Dr. Loomis too, because he's like one of the greatest characters ever on screen. Just absolutely love Dr. Loomis.
Yeah, like if this were the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he would be like the Nick Fury. So, yeah, Loomis is at the center of all this. He has to talk to Norman to try to understand Michael. So in some way, he has to get Norman on his side to help him.
Like help him understand Michael Myers and why he does what he does? Or?
When Loomis is at the university studying for his degree in criminal psychology, one of his colleagues is Mr. Lecter.
Ah, yes.
So we get into this whole cinematic universe with Silence of the Lambs and Halloween and Psycho.
Oh, no. So you know how like Loomis like kind of goes crazy, like especially crazy in Halloween 5?
Yeah. It was like, get the girl.
Yeah, I think maybe that's around the time Lecter like came out as a serial killer and was captured, and like it was just too much for Loomis to handle. He's talking to Norman Bates trying to figure out how to catch Michael.
Yeah.
His colleague, Dr. Lecter, he just found out as a serial killer that eats people. And so now he's just, by Halloween 5, he's just crazy. He's just totally insane. Like, you're holding that little girl hostage. Like, come on, Michael, get the little girl. Like, just totally insane. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes nuts.
Yes.
And I like the idea you brought up, too. You said that like, Loomis was, he's kind of immortal, too, because of all the stuff that happened. He burns with Michael in Halloween 2. There's no reason either of them should be alive.
Yep.
But they're like this, like, you know, these polar opposites is like, you know, I guess like good and evil, and they both like sort of need each other to exist.
Loomis has zero fear, man. Like, I feel like the only thing Loomis is really afraid of when it comes to Michael is what Michael could do to innocent people. But he doesn't seem to be afraid for his own safety at all. Like, I think in like Halloween 1 and 5, like he just straight up like pimp walks into Michael's house and he's just like, I'll just sit here and wait for him, like by myself in this dark house. It's like, damn, dude.
And I like the extremes that he goes or anything. Like even in the second one, he's already like getting there when he's like, you know, when he uses the gun to try to get the police officer to turn the car around and he doesn't. And then he says, what do you want me to give you, a warning shot? And he shoots the window out.
Yeah, and then like, you know, the whole like, I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight, and Loomis is like, you don't know what death is. Like, just, it's so hilarious.
You don't know what death is!
It's so awesome.
Oh, man, I love that line. It makes no sense, but I love it.
It's so quotable, that guy. I love, like, Loomis is so quotable.
Yeah, Donald Pleasance, yeah. And if you've seen like other stuff he's in too, he's a great actor. Like he's done like The Great Escape.
Yeah,
he was in he was the Bond villain in You Only Die Twice, I think.
Always a side character kind of, but such a good actor. Like he could easily be the starring role in everything. He was amazing. Well, you think about these ridiculous Loomis lines like, he's gone from here, the evil is gone. Like what a ridiculous thing to say. But since it's Donald Pleasance saying it, it's just awesome. Like he just delivers it perfectly.
In 5, I really liked I wished he would go to hell, but in my heart I knew hell wouldn't have him.
Yeah. It's so great. Well, in the whole speech he gives the sheriff in the first one, like, I mean, remember this long speech about I met this child with the blackest eyes, you know, just the devil's eyes, all this stuff. It's so great.
That's the gold standard.
That is the gold standard.
Yeah, it's a lot like the Jaws speech in that Quint says, because he says something similar too. It's got like the lifeless eyes, the blackest eyes. I forget what it is. We're talking about the sharks. I always wanted to see a scene with Quint and Loomis, like in the same room, just sharing stories,
like talking about Jaws and Michael Myers, like just back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, the other funny thing about Loomis, like, so if I was going to come up with a sequel idea, no one ever believes this guy. Like, I think every movie he's in starts with him trying to warn the people of Haddonfield, like, Michael's on the loose, you have to get out of here, you know, protect yourselves. And they just never believe him, dude. And so, like, one sequel idea I have is just, he goes to Haddonfield, Michael's escaped, he's trying to convince everyone, he's coming home, you know, like, you gotta listen to me, I beg of you. And then they just don't listen. He's like, you know what? Fuck all of you, man. And he, like, goes to Florida, retires, and like the rest of the movie is Michael's just like wreaking havoc to Haddonfield, like just laying waste, right? And every now and then it cuts to Loomis like just lining up a putt, you know, on the golf course, like having a martini. Because that poor guy, like just no one ever listens to him, dude.
Oh, that's funny.
But actually, I do have an actual idea for a sequel that's not a joke. So, and I wanted to like kind of combine it with your idea. Mm-hmm. So I really, like I said earlier, like the idea of there's no closure because there's no motive and you never find out why, right? And they kind of did this in Halloween 2018 where Laurie is like traumatized, right? and she just can't get over it after 40 years. She's still completely traumatized. So my idea was she should realize at some point that she's never going to get over this, and she's desperate to figure out some way to move past it. So she actually confronts Michael at like the mental ward or wherever he's at. And so there's a scene where Michael's all chained up and he's behind a table and he can't move. And she's there just like screaming at him, like, how could you kill my friends? Like, why did you do this to me? Why did you kill your sister? And he's just looking at her, not responding at all. And, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis is such a great actress. Like, I can picture her just screaming in his face and crying and freaking out. And maybe even at one point she jumps over the table and attacks him. And, you know, like the guards pull her off and Michael doesn't even respond. And then eventually she goes home having accomplished nothing, still traumatized. And then eventually he escapes, and the rest of the movie is her tracking him down and finally killing him because he is just a mortal man, and finally gets the closure she needed. But mixed with your idea where while this is all going on, it's also cutting to 60, whenever Loomis and Michael are in the hospital together.
Yeah, it was 63.
Kind of like telling us both stories at the same time, back and forth. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of my actual idea for a sequel.
This week's episode is sponsored by Arcane, a Netflix original series from the creators of League of Legends. Arcane is a 9-episode, 3-part series that follows the story of 2 young girls, Vi and Powder, born in the Undercity beneath Piltover. Their eagerness to prove themselves will set in motion a series of events that will take their relationship to its breaking point and transform them forever. Witness the animation event of the year to see the champions we know and love like never before. Vi, Jinx, Heimerdinger, Jace, their stories will all intertwine in this action-packed series. Whether you're a longtime League player or you're brand new to Runeterra, Arcane serves as a perfect introduction to the vast world of League of Legends, focusing on the origins of some of its most iconic characters. Dive into the stories behind one of the most played games of all time. Discover the secrets of Piltover and its Undercity and prepare for the epic battle that is only just beginning. Arcane is now streaming exclusively on Netflix. The Halloween series is interesting because how it kind of always sticks to the same basic thing no matter what they do, but it had really interesting ideas. Like Halloween 3 was a totally different direction. You know, let's make it an anthology series about Halloween, the holiday, the season. You know, they basically, like everybody just said like, well, where's Michael Myers? Let's bring him back. So then they had to just do that. So they kind of, like the series hasn't really evolved much, but it sort of tries to experiment a little. And like, you brought up an interesting point one time. We were talking about Metallica and how Metallica has changed a lot, but they've gone back to the original format. And I remember you asked me, like, is that something they really wanted to do, or did they do it just to make people happy?
Yeah, it's kind of a deeper question where it's like, you know, as any artist, you know, whether you're a musician or a filmmaker or an author or anyone, I think all of us have to deal with this at some point, which is when you make it and you have your first successful, you know, work. It's like, it's always happy days. Like, let's just use musicians for an example. So it's always happy days when the first album comes out, and that's the album that makes you like famous or successful. Because, you know, if you think about like, okay, so this is the artist, right? And this is the fans, right? So like the first album, the artist and the fans are like this. Like everything's right in the world. Like the first album was what the artist is currently working on. So that's obviously what they're interested in. And the fans love the first album. So like they're just totally synced. But then as time goes on, it's like, okay, well, the artist doesn't want to write the same album over and over and over. They might even want to do a different genre. Like imagine if you love blues and heavy metal and you make a heavy metal album and you get big. It's like, well, I love blues too. So if you do a blues album for your second album, like, man, your fans are going to be pissed. So it's like the artist like goes this way. And even if it's not that dramatic, maybe it's just another metal album with just slightly different influences in it. Kind of like the Load album. Like it's still metal, but it is very different than anything they had done before. And I think you told me at one point Alice in Chains had a lot of influence on that sound, right? Yeah. So anyway, so the artist kind of starts going this way, and the fans are like, hey, what are you doing, man? It doesn't sound like the Black Album. It doesn't sound like Injustice for All. What are you doing? And they kind of, there's like tension there, you know? And so the question I've always kind of thought was very fascinating is, as an artist, what is your responsibility? Because if you do what you want to do only and all the time, there's going to be tension with your fans because you're going to be kind of all over the place. I want to do an album like this. Now I want to do an album like that. And the fans like probably aren't going to like that because you're not sticking to what they originally loved about you. But if you do only what the fans love, of course, as an artist, you're no longer fulfilled. So anyway, that's something I want to bring up to you because, you know, I'm an artist as a musician. I love all kinds of music. So I've dealt with this to an extent. But, you know, you have so many more followers than I do, and you do this for a living and everything. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. It's always been a fascinating question to me. I want to see what you thought.
Well, I mean, I never expected to be the angry video game nerd. It's something that just happened, and and I'm eternally grateful for it. But I can't do the exact same thing all the time, or else I'm personally very miserable.
Yeah.
So what I've always done is do a little bit of both. And like I feel like one episode that I do will be for me, and then another episode will be for the fans. But I hope everybody would still like the ones I do. I'll try my best. But I realize like a video, for example, the one that I was the most passionate about this year was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the parody we did. But I knew going into it, this isn't like the usual format. This is very different, and not everybody's going to like this. So I just, you know, accept that. I already know it going into it. But the next one will be back to business. The next one will be back, you know, to the standard formula. So that's what I try to do. I always try to just give a little bit of both. And as long as you could make yourself happy and make the fans happy, then everything should be good. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
And then also it's like, you know, okay, I got the video game thing, but I also like movies. I'm a big movie and music fan.
Right.
So it's like I kind of have to satisfy all these parts of me. Or else, like, if I'm just doing the same exact thing and I'm only doing it, you know, to make somebody else happy, then I get depressed. I get, like, you know, really sad when I'm not creatively doing something that I want to do.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's what I do. I try to make everybody happy that I can. But you got to make yourself happy too. Like you can't, you know.
Yeah.
But as a fan of Metallica, like that's the first time I ever noticed this thing where, like, in high school when I first got into Metallica, it was Load and Reload. Those were the new albums. Those were the first ones I heard, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I loved it. And then I went back to Kill 'Em All. I'm like, oh, this is different, but I like this too. But in high school, that was the first time I heard, like, oh, the old Metallica was better, you know? And I was like, well, it's definitely different, but I've liked it all. And I could always go back to Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets anytime. Like, I could always listen to those. But sure, they'll put out something that's like a total miss, like Lulu, the Lou Reed collaboration. I listened to that once, was like, okay, that's bizarre, and then never listened to it again. But I didn't dwell on it. I didn't always be like, oh, well, it's all ruined now because of that album. I would always go back to the old stuff or whatever I felt like. And then the next one, I think the next one after that was Hardwired, and Hardwired was fucking awesome.
That is a good album, and it sounds like it could have come out like right after like Injustice for All, or maybe right after the Black Album. It would fit right in those years.
Yeah, it does fit somewhere in there. Like it does feel kind of like a missing link between Justice for All and Load and Reload. I don't know where Black Album fits in, but
yeah.
But the thing is, like Lars says that ever since Ride the Lightning is when the whole old Metallica fans started. Like the whole thing where it's like, oh, it's not as good as the old ones, because they released a ballad. They put out Fade to Black.
Yeah.
And when Fade to Black came out, a lot of fans were like, this doesn't sound like what we signed up for. Like they just weren't happy with it. But now looking back, I mean, Ride the Lightning, I think that's their best one.
That's a great album. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Master Puppets. And then then Justice for All, they got on MTV. And I think MTV was like when they started calling them sellouts. And then Black Album was like winning Grammys and stuff. So I think Black Album was like when like the sellout thing really started. And then Load and Reload, they changed their sound a lot. And then they went back to Saint Anger. That was more like this raw approach. Like, let's kind of go back to like a garage band aspect. And then nobody liked that either. But But the thing is now, I think now people can look back at Load and Reload and be like, oh yeah, those are great. Like I think everything gains appreciation. Because I remember when I was making nerd videos already in 2007, it was just like all the time, like you would always hear, these aren't like the old ones. These aren't as good. And I was, I didn't know what else to do. I was trying my best. And just like the format, even to this day, hasn't changed much. Like I still do it the same way. I play the game. I sit down, I write the notes, and then I write it into a script. And so like just to think back now, if people are saying they like the old ones better, what do you mean 2007? I'm wondering where the cutoff is, because people were telling me in 2007 they weren't as good as 2006, I guess.
Oh, wow.
So it sounds, but hearing Lars talk about it makes so much sense. It's like, yeah, that's right. Like as right from like the second album or right from the next thing, it's always, you're always going to get that, even when things are more similar,
Mm-hmm.
Like I made the Commodore 64 episode and the horror Commodore 64 when I thought I did a really great job with those, and most people do. Most people are really happy with those, but it felt to me exactly the same as when I was doing the Intellivision and ColecoVision reviews, where it was the same thing, just kind of going through all these games and people will always see it different. You'll never the creator and the fan will never all see it exactly the same way. So, you just try your best.
You just do the best you can. No, I agree with that. I think the right thing to do is either try to like forge that difficult path in the middle where you're being satisfied personally, but you're also thinking of your fans. But it is hard, right? Like because it's like a constant pull back and forth. I can speak more about music obviously than filmmaking, but I think about a band like Metallica. Like obviously they've got enough money to where they would never need to care about fans again if they didn't want to, but I think they genuinely care.
Yeah.
Which is why I think they went back to that sound with Hardwired. But of course, I don't know them. For all I know, that's exactly what they wanted to do, and it had nothing to do with fans. But it's always like this interesting, conversation for me, because every artist is going to face that eventually.
Yeah, and you'll always get a different opinion from different people, because I've talked about because I've talked with other Metallica fans, and we don't always agree on it. Like where it's like, oh yeah, Hardwired, that sounded really good, and somebody else said, well, to me, Hardwired sounded like it was just Metallica trying too hard to be Metallica.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like it was a conscious effort to be like let's sound like the old stuff. Even with Death Magnetic, I think Death Magnetic actually was even closer to the old stuff, because Death Magnetic had a ballad which was the equivalent of the track 4, 1. Like this one was The Day That Never Comes. And that song reminded me a lot of 1, and just the structure of the album. Hardwired was a bit like, it was like a double disc, like double, it seemed like they just included everything. You know what I mean? It didn't really have like an album structure or like a feel that the old ones had. The first song would always start out really brutal, but then they'd kind of descend in tempo. And by track 4, you got the ballad, and then track 5 it gets heavy again, and then track 4 builds up. Of course, it ends heavy. Then you have an instrumental as like the last track or the second to last track, and then it usually ends with like a super heavy one, like really fast again. So we're reaching the end of the podcast here, and we thought of one other funny little topic is about meeting famous people. I probably have a bunch. A lot of times thinking like conventions and stuff, or like funny stories. The biggest one was Ozzy Osbourne, but I don't know. It's a good story, but I think I have a better one. So why don't you go first? Tell us your funny...
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just kind of like a long-running joke I've had, and it's just a funny story. So when I don't know how old I was, but I'm going to guess 12 or 13, so pretty young. My dad took me to a Star Trek convention, and this is like while Next Generation was on the air, and it was like a huge deal. So there was a lot of actors from the show there, but one of them was John Delancey, who played Q. And I remember I really liked the Q character when I was a kid. And so I had like a poster of him that we had bought at the convention. I was going to have him sign it, and you have to get in line and all this. So the rule was you could have him sign 2 things. Well, I only had 1. The people behind me had 3. So they like tapped me on the shoulder and they're like, hey kid, like, here's like the program from the convention. So the program has like every actor who appears and like a little biography and stuff. They're like, would you have him sign this program for us? Because you only have 1 thing and we have 3. So they hand me this thing and I was like, okay, sure. So I grabbed this little booklet and I put my thumb on the page that they had it open to, but I didn't even look at it. I just like put it down at my side and just kept waiting. So I get up to Q and hand him the poster and he signs it. And then I hand him the book. And he opens it and he looks at this book and he's like, do I look like Michael Dorn to you? Who was the guy that played Worf, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm just like a little kid. I'm like, so obviously they had handed me this booklet, turned to the wrong page, right? And so then he's like, I didn't say anything. I'm just like stunned because he looked so angry. And he's like, he has like some like helper next to him. He's like, make sure these people know who I am and know that like they have the book turned to the right page and aren't wasting my time. And I just remember thinking like, dude, that's brutal, man. Like I'm 12 years old. Like, geez, like calling me out and like saying this so everyone can hear it. And I was so mad at those people behind me for giving me this stupid book, right? So anyway, for all just for the record, for all I know, this is like the nicest guy ever. Maybe he was just having a bad day. Maybe he meant to be humorous, like sarcastic, like Q is. No one was laughing, but it's possible. So maybe he's a great guy. I don't know. But it's kind of funny because like I have this running joke where like I've sworn vengeance, like one of these days, like I'm going to see him at a convention and stand up and be like, just give this epic speech like 30 years ago to the day I met this celebrity, and then at the end, like just reveal it was him, and it just, obviously I'm just kidding, but it's like been this long running joke. And my girlfriend always laughs like I'm the real life Captain Picard because I've had this like 30-year feud with Q.
As far as meeting celebrities, like at conventions or photo ops or anything, I mean, there's a bunch of them that I can think about, but, the Ozzy one, I'll tell it anyway real quick just because I'll keep it brief. But the Ozzy one was interesting just because of his entrance. I think that's what made it so exciting because it was when his album Down to Earth came out, 2001. He was doing a picture-only event at Tower Records. Later, I actually got a signing from him at a bookstore when his book came out. So I've gotten the picture and I've gotten the autograph, but on 2 separate occasions. But anyway, to get his picture when the album came out, you went to the Tower Records, you bought the album at midnight when it came out. Like they would open up the store just at midnight to do this, and they give you all a wristband to the first like 100 people or whatever. Then you'd have to have that wristband on for like a week and then come back for the photo op. And when we came back, it was just all these metalheads in an alley behind the Tower Records, like in the back. And we're just all lined up, and they got this PA system set up. And basically, then we see him show up. He's in a van with like a V shape of motorcycles around the van. And they just come in, and then he comes out and he said something, to the crowd on the PA, and everybody's going insane. And then like the crowd almost started like moshing, like it was crazy. And then we went, to the store, and he's sitting in like a throne. They have this big throne for him to sit in with this like banner Ozzy right above him. And he's just sitting there, not really saying anything or just kind of staring into space. And I remember going up to him and just being so like starstruck that I couldn't even say anything. Like I was just like so like nervous. And then like I just remember like he looked at me one time, and I just like when I made eye contact through his like tinted glasses, I just like froze up. I was like, holy shit, it's Ozzy. And then he like put his hand on me, we did the picture, and then that was it. It was like 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds I remember for the rest of my life.
Wow. The
other one, the really good one, when sometimes you get somebody who's really enthusiastic, who's like exactly like in character and everything. Uh-huh. That was Phil Anselmo from Pantera. So he was doing a signing, my wife and I went there, brought my Cowboys from Hell CD, the one that I originally got, that I grew up with, and also bought one of the pictures he had at the table. He had another guy like doing the money part. And then we go up there, and the first thing I hand him is the picture, and he just goes, "Give me your name." I'm like, "That's okay. You don't got to personalize or anything." And then he like stands up. He's like, "You're not selling this shit on eBay. Give me a name." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then like I give him my name and then my wife's name, and then he's like, "No." And like he insisted, he was like he put my wife's name first before me. So I was like, "Okay, cool, fair enough, yeah." And then I hand him the Cowboys from Hell CD. I'm like, "Oh, this is the one I grew up with." And he looks at me and he goes, "You're making me feel old, man." And then he starts going on this big speech where he's talking about the picture and how it was taken in Frank Zappa's wine cellar. And he's just telling us all these stories, and he's talking and talking. And we got this whole line of people. I'm like, when is he going to stop talking to us? And so he was cool as shit.
No, that's a great story.
Cool. Anyway, yeah, so thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cinemassacre Podcast. See you next Tuesday. Check out more episodes at cinemassacre.com or wherever you fill up your ear holes with podcasts.